Welcome back. Recently on the WONK podcast, I spoke with Canada's Minister of International Trade, Dominic LeBlanc, and asked him about the recent comments the new U.S. ambassador to Canada has made to CTV about how tariffs in this country would be the lowest and a possible deal could be done by July. Here's what Minister LeBlanc had to say.
We don't want to land at something less than 10%, Amanda. We want to get to zero. That's, as I say, we were firm and have been publicly and privately in terms of that objective, and we think that that's in the interest of the American economy and American consumers as well. But we still have to continue to make that argument. And the timeline again, sure, July is better than August. June would be better than July. So our hope is to make significant progress as quickly as possible, but recognizing that it's a moving target, and the Americans say to us that they want to arrive at a big deal quickly.
Minister LeBlanc is also in charge of the One Canada file, which will play a key role in getting big projects going. Here's what he had to say about that.
Mr. Carney was clear in the election campaign that developing, for example, energy corridors across the country, which can very well include pipeline infrastructure, conventional energy, understanding that the social license and the acceptability in different provinces is obviously part of the conversation. So it's sort of not a red light, green light thing as much as figuring out a way with a new economic reality driven by the United States and the desire to develop, as the Prime Minister said, trading relationships with reliable international partners. And just look across the Atlantic. There are a lot of them in Europe, for example. So how do we have the right infrastructure to ensure that those trading relationships can be enhanced, strengthened, amplified, expanded? I'm optimistic that the country is in a different mindset than perhaps it was 5 years ago. And you see that from business and political leaders right across the country that previously one might have thought would have been very resistant to expanding pipeline infrastructure are now saying, look, we need to look carefully at a way that can be done properly.
When Donald Trump passed his tax bill recently, it included punishing changes in how Canadians' investments in the U.S. might be taxed. Here's what Dominic LeBlanc had to say about those.
We worry about some of these tax measures that the administration has spoken about. We're obviously following this particular piece of legislation as it makes its way through the U.S. legislative process. We don't want to prejudge what the Senate might do with it. We note that it passed Congress by a very, very small margin. As we speak, some senators are in Ottawa to sort of, on a goodwill mission, some senior senators to sort of say, you know what, we all don't have the same view on the economic relationship between Canada and the United States and the administration has. So we'll continue to advocate against these measures. And it has to be part of our conversation and is part of our conversation with the administration, with President Trump's administration, with Secretary Lutnick and others, because sure, there are tariff measures, as we said at the beginning of the conversation, and then there are a series of other measures, in this case, worrisome tax measures that will affect Canada and other allies of the United States. Again, it's not in the economic interest of the United States to do this. To your point, I remember meeting executives from the CPP investment board. They talked to me about the kind of investments they made. They can be, frankly, transformational for a lot of big industries in the United States. So all of this stuff, we think in the end, will prove to be counterproductive to the American economic interest.
Dominic LeBlanc is Canada's Minister of International Trade and Intergovernmental Affairs. You can catch that whole conversation on the WONK podcast, anywhere you get your podcasts. Time for the takeaway and selling your plan for the future. The throne speech that opened the 45th Parliament was notable for a lot of things, not least the monarch reading it. But beyond the pageantry or distraction, depending on your perspective, the speech laid out an agenda for the government that is all business. The new Major Federal Project Office will streamline big projects with a promise to partner with the provinces and avoid duplicating efforts. And the government is pledging to rein in spending on itself. The growth rate of its own operating budget will be reduced to 2%. A rate below inflation, implying real trimming. And the Prime Minister promises to do it without cutting transfers to other governments or to people. The heart of the fiscal promise is getting its operating budget to balance within 3 years. That's not a promise to balance the entire budget, because this government will change how it accounts for some spending, with longer-term projects being debt financed and current operations financed with current revenue. It's an important mindset shift which, if not abused, could be a positive one. That's the good news. The trouble with the throne speech is what we don't know. And what we don't know is where our trading relationship with the U.S. will land and how long it will take to get there. As we saw this week quite clearly, businesses are unwilling to invest in themselves in the face of so much uncertainty. And creating an environment where business does the heavy lifting of economic growth is one of the most important tasks of any government. It also happens to be one of the hardest, especially in a time when major factors like our most important trade relationship are up in the air. My takeaway? Feel-good moments are all very well, but at the end of the day, it's business the government needs to convince about its intentions. That's Taking Stock for this week. I'm Amanda Lang. Thanks for being with us.